How do you make meaningful pixel art? Like art that speaks to your soul. Like, well, art. I recently made a mock-up screenshot for a game, but I wanted it to somehow feel impactful. So I'm going to walk you guys through the process I used for designing the characters in the world. I'm going to talk about the many mistakes I made along the way, and I'll be discussing the specific techniques I used so you can do this too. Let's get to it. Hey guys, I'm Andrew. This picture was for the Lospec Jam 2. Now Lospec is primarily a color palette website for pixel artists. They were hosting a little month-long contest with 4 categories: games, apps, animations, and art. That one's for me. The 2 big factors were that you had to use a resolution of 256 by 224, which is the same as the Super Nintendo, and also the picture had to use a very specific color palette, this one called Console 16. You only had 16 colors in that you could use for the entire image. But still, that is a lot of wiggle room. So first, let's brainstorm. I really wanted this to have some sort of artful meaning. But what that meaning could be, I was still drawing a blank on. The fake console for this fake game is the LS16. But more importantly, they also made a tagline: "The space age is yours." Now hold on, that's good. What if this system launched with a game for that tagline, "The space age is yours," beginning with whatever I was about to do? I did a bunch of rough concept art for this one, from an explorer dude hanging out of a UFO to maybe a shop that sells space goods, and finally this idea of a little astronaut with his space dog. They could be at a little space shop, like a booth, looking out at the galaxy. They've got stability here on this asteroid for one last time before they step off into adventure. With the basic idea decided, it was pixel time. I used Pixaki for my pixel art, so I imported my sketch into Pixaki as a reference photo and started tracing the space boy. I really didn't do anything special here. I just colored him with the round brush. I slapped down some blue for the asteroid so I could just hurry up and get to that space dog. I figured since it didn't need a helmet, it must be an alien, so it got to be green. Plus that looks good alongside the red jetpack, and I like the darker shade of the green this palette allowed me for the shadows. I treated the light source as the lamppost, so I made sure the shadows were all towards the bottom right of the characters. I did a couple experiments on the style of the lamppost. I decided pretty quickly that the pointy version wasn't friendly enough, so I went for a big round bulb. I really wanted to get everything on the canvas before detailing too much, so I just blobbed in this space booth. We'll talk more about the booth later, but I thought Rocky's Rockets could be a cool name for it. I drew in a giant circle for the planet in the corner. I thought that metaphorically, it made sense to have a planet really close to the character. With him looking off into the distance, that helps to drive home the idea that the space age is his. Worlds are not his focus. I did a few attempts at the space dust in the background. The idea was that it would visually guide the viewer's eyes to the characters. I couldn't find a way to make it look good with a color palette though, which may just be on me. But either way, it wasn't working, so I ditched it and focused on the distant planet instead. Now making that planet so prominent here was a huge mistake, because that really makes it look like he's just going from one planet to the next. I work on fixing that later, but for now I was still experimenting with ways to guide the viewer's eye. To do the rings, I used the ellipse tool to draw an oval on a separate layer above the planet. Then I erased chunks of that oval until it looked more like a ring going around it. I rotated the rings until they were pointing at the protagonists. You have to be very careful whenever you're rotating with pixel art. You're gonna get a lot of jaggies. Jaggies are like little extra pixels and spots that really interrupt a curve, but this was such a simple shape, I really didn't mind. I'd be able to go in and fix that myself later. I took another crack at the space dust. It still won't last, but first I added some stars. For now, I just drew a little plus symbol with yellow along the edges and white in the middle. I copied and pasted that all over the sky. And then I drew some clouds onto that planet to make it a little more, you know, planety. Don't be too careful when you're designing a cloud because it's fluffy. They don't really have normal logical shapes. I also drew in a giant cyan circle behind the planet to be the atmosphere. The planet looked a little flat, so I added some shadows underneath the clouds, and I think that helped a lot. Alright, I filled in everything that was on the original sketch, so now it's time for a checkpoint. And by checkpoint, I mean we're gonna check on the art and point out everything that's wrong with it so far. Off the cuff, that planet is hella distracting. It looks like it's the whole goal of the game to get from one planet to the next. Also, the space dust is, I don't like the space dust. And obviously we still need a lot more detail on everything. I'll be real with you guys, I wanted to quit at this point. This picture is not what I wanted it to be. It doesn't look like it's coming together. It's still pretty rough in a whole lot of areas. This happens a lot when you make art, just in general. It's real easy to give up and say, well, I suck, I'm not gonna do this. Don't do that, just keep going, you know? Like, there are things that we know we can fix on this, so let's fix the stuff. All right, now some of this was pretty easy to fix. It was just a matter of doing it. I shrank the planet, I detailed the asteroid, literally just by scribbling in some little dark blobbies and a shadow on the left side and underneath. I did keep a section of the bottom and left brighter for a rim light effect, and I stuck a shadow under our characters. All right, now it's time for the elephant in the room. Or the shopkeeper in the shop. First, I tried making him a robot, but he looks like Otto from Mega Man. That's my brain, oops. And then I tried making him an alien instead. And I actually really like the design of this guy. I even gave him a little cash register, and we'll talk more about that alien and cash register in just a second. But first, little lesson, let's talk about dithering. Dithering is a shading technique where you use dots to gradually change from one color to the next. For these clouds, that helped it look a little softer and gives it a little bit more depth. Especially when you're using a super limited color palette like this one, dithering really helps with a smooth transition between shades. All right, now back to the shot. Nope, I cut it. This is supposed to be an image of exploration and adventure. The whole concept of a shop implies that, well, you're shopping to explore, right? And that's not the vibe that I was going for. So if we take those out and we just have this mysterious lamppost on an asteroid that these guys are on, that actually is a lot stronger. The biggest problem right now is just that, well, outer space looks kind of boring. So let's add some variety. A lot of the ways that I spiced this up are really simple on a technical level. So we're just gonna kind of pop through these like bam bam pa-bow style. Blue star, bam. 1 pixel stars all over, bam. Little planet dithering, pa-bow. Tiny planets, bam. Space dust, yeah. Over in the corner, it actually just kind of helps frame the whole image. Like little helpful space bacon. Recolor the ring planet, bam. Recolor the big planet, pa-bow. And yeah, that's just gonna keep happening through the whole rest of the picture. I was very indecisive on that. I also drew in a big star behind the little planet. Leaving 1 pixel empty with another one floating helps it look a little extra twinkly, so I liked that. But the planet in front is colored with a light source in front, so it really doesn't logically work here. I moved the star down, and then I had reached the feedback checkpoint. When I got to this point, I asked my buddy Mike for some help. He does a lot of abstract work, a lot of crazy colors, anime characters, all mixed together. It's very cool. I'll put a link to his description in the comments. I'll put a link to his Instagram in the description, and you can go check him out. If you have any art friends, I do recommend that you talk to them and get feedback, because they can tell you things that you maybe didn't think of. Mike's advice was that there is no focal point here. Are they looking at the star or the planet? And with that bright green dog, there should probably be another bright green accent color somewhere. We also went back and forth about the fact that this was supposed to be a gamey piece, and there are no video game elements on the screen. So let's finish this thing. We need a green accent color, so how about the main star? This is instantly better because it connects the dog visually to outer space. Maybe that's his home or the home of his people. Now if we recolor the planet to make it a bit duller, now the star really stands out. I also reshaped the asteroid a little, adding an angle on the edge to ever so slightly point the viewer's eye up towards the star. I also made these really cool health meters and bone item counter thing, and I'm not going to show you the process for them because I cut them. The thing is, Mike told me, and I knew, this doesn't look like an actual gameplay scene, right? Like they're not in the middle of action. So I took that all the way out and instead decided that this is a title screen. So let's title things up. I made the asteroid a little smaller. I also did a bunch of new recoloring and dithering on that planet and the asteroid to make the rounds rounder and the colors blend better. And it really doesn't take many dots to make a huge difference in the way that your picture looks. Next is text. Before I spend any time on details, y'all know I like to scratch things into place to make sure it works. So I just kind of wrote it in real messy like. The title would be Ace and the Astropup, along with a press start prompt. I drew in little rectangles on a new layer for the actual text and started carving the letters out with the eraser. To give the text some depth, I just duplicated the layer, colored it blue, and moved it down 1 pixel and to the right. Ta-da! The title, being the plain text in the top corner, really wasn't working to the fun explorer vibe of the game. So I changed the name to Ace Pup and just kind of winged it for the word ace, aiming for a sci-fi vibe. I thought a star on the word would make it extra ace-like, and then I committed a cardinal sin in pixel art. I stretched it up, I scaled it up. When you do that, it might look okay to your brain at first, but it's actually very blocky. You have a lot more pixels you can work with now. So I had to go through and actually smooth out all of those letters. One last thing I'll say on this is that you always have to keep your mind open with pixel art. Because while I was using this line to make sure I, had things lined up, I liked it. And as soon as it was there, I knew I had to use it. So let's take a look at the finished product. So I really do like how this thing turned out. I think it's pretty cool, actually. I'm really proud of this. It might be my favorite pixel art piece I've done. So when you guys are trying to make meaningful pixel art, just ask yourself questions, I can't work in a big open box of nothing. I don't know what to do with it. But if I go in and just start making really base decisions, that can spark creativity. Let me know in the comments what other stuff y'all want to talk about with pixel art. What specific concepts or game series do you want to explore? All that kind of stuff. Anyway, appreciate you guys. Follow along for more pixel practice. But when I got to this point, I asked, come on, come here.